Breaking news, Donald Trump just did what he always does. He completely backed down from his China threats in less than 72 hours. And guess what happened? Bitcoin rocketed past 114K. Stock futures are positioning for gains on Monday. And we've seen it go up to 1 to 1.5%. And China is literally writing op-eds mocking the entire US political system. This is the biggest market reversal we've seen all month. And if you're not paying attention, you're missing critical moves that could affect your portfolio. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to bring you the latest market breaking news. And today, we need to talk about what I'm calling the Great China Taco of 2025. Now, for those who don't know the term taco, it's basically when Trump makes them massive threats and then completely walks them back. And folks, we just witnessed the fastest taco in recent memory. On Friday, Trump threatened 100% tariffs on all Chinese goods. Markets took a tumble. Now, Bitcoin dropped below 112,000. It dipped actually to 102 and then back up. And we saw over 2 trillion wiped off the US market cap. China fired back with their own threats. Everyone thought we were heading into trade war 3.0. But then Sunday came. And Trump posts on Truth Social, "Don't worry about China. It'll all be fine. Highly respected President Xi just had a bad moment." Classic Trump taco move. Okay? Now here's why this matters for your money. This isn't just political theater. We're talking about rare earth elements that power your smartphone, defense contracts worth billions, and crypto market that just gave us a masterclass in volatility trading. So buckle up because we're diving deep into what this all means for your investments. In the previous video, we talked about what happened on October 9th. China added 5 more elements to their restricted list, and Trump fired back with saying that they're going to put 100% tariffs on all Chinese imports effective November 1st. He also threatened to cancel his meeting with President Xi, and this actually caused the markets to take a tumble. But on Saturday, China fired back through their state media, which is the Global Times. And the Global Times publishes editorial calling Trump threats trade bullying and warns they're not afraid to fight a trade war. Beijing doubles down on their rare earth controls, saying they're just protecting national security, exactly what the US does. Now, here in this article, we see that they're saying that willful threats of high tariffs are not the right way to get along with China. They go on to say that the US Commerce Control List covers 3,000 items, whereas the China Export Control List of dual-use items only covers about 900. The US has long imposed the de minimis rule of export controls with a lower threshold of 0%. Well, Donald Trump on Truth Social said, "Don't worry about China. It'll be fine. Highly respected President Xi just had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The USA wants to help China, not hurt it." He does not end it in his "thank you for the attention to this matter." Why does Trump always do this? In my opinion, it's actually a calculated strategy. He creates maximum market chaos, gets everyone's attention, he forces China to respond, and then positions himself as the reasonable deal maker who's preventing economic disaster. The problem is the markets are getting wise to this pattern. Now, we all know that Bitcoin had a 19 billion wiped out in cryptocurrency liquidations in a single day. But institutions started buying the dip almost immediately. By Sunday, after Trump's post, Bitcoin surged past 114K. That's a $2,000 move in less than 48 hours. And this tells us something really important about crypto markets and how they respond to political risk. Now, apparently, someone opened a brand new crypto wallet on Friday and shorted the market just moments before Trump made his announcement. Now, we're not saying there's insider trading happening, but the timing is interesting because that wallet shorted Bitcoin 80 million USD and then shorted Ethereum 30 million USD. Literally, the last short was 1 minute before Trump's Truth Social post. What this shows us is that crypto has become the ultimate political sentiment barometer. When trade tensions spike, Bitcoin initially sells off as a risk asset, but then it recovers quickly because investors see it as a hedge against currency wars and political instability. For those of you holding crypto positions, this pattern is very crucial to understand. Trump's tariff threats create short-term volatility, but they often lead to long-term bullish moves as people seek alternatives to traditional financial systems. The key lesson here is don't panic sell on the initial political headline. Wait for the inevitable Trump comments to see if he's going to back off or not. Then position. We've seen this movie before, and it usually ends the same way. Now let's look at what China has been talking about the US government in regards to the shutdown. They say that economists estimate that each week of federal government shutdown in the US reduces the national GDP by approximately 0.1 to 2.2%. True, it's about $15 billion a week. But this time, things seem far from simple. In the past, after a government shutdown, there was often an unspoken agreement to avoid layoffs, leaving room for maneuvers. In contrast, the current administration has not only publicly announced layoff plans, but also put them front and center. They go on to say that the two-party system was originally designed as a check and balanced mechanism, but under trends of polarization, the system is turning into self-consuming closed loop. Now, there's multiple factors, and they cite here, including electoral districting, money-driven politics, and the social media ecosystems, leaving zero-sum thinking to dominate most people's political imagination. Then this article here was actually not bad. It's talking about how we're going to mend between the countries. They say that the U.S. unilateral actions have dealt a heavy blow to global market confidence, raising concerns that the world's two largest economies could once again slip into a trade war. If the U.S. claims to seek dialogue while simultaneously escalating unilateral measures and resorting to fabricated justifications and trade bullying, it will only deepen the trust deficit. China's trade and export control policies have always been highly transparent and predictable, and we remain open to trade applications that meet the relevant rules. They're basically saying that we want control over who can export what, and they're using this as a tactic so that they can easily turn off and on the export mechanism. Right now, there isn't a turn on and off. Orders that have been confirmed have to be shipped. But in these new licenses for export, they can literally shut it off immediately. They go on to say products intended for military use are presumed ineligible for licenses, whereas civilian goods are not subject to this restriction. Saying, hey, we don't want to restrict your people, but we want to maintain control so that we can also defend our national security. That's their play. They say that there's no need for excessive reactions from the U.S., nor should these controls be used as a pretext to instigate a trade war. They also talk about U.S. national security and how the U.S. has had lots of these controls for a long time. And then they go on to say, yet it has hypercritically criticized China's normal regulatory measures, a clear U.S. double standard. Now, Liz Tobin, the former China director at the National Security Council, recently remarked with frustration that we're playing 2D chess while Beijing is playing 4D chess. And this is an indicator as to how much planning is actually going into U.S. policy. Now, this obviously is from the Global Times, which is Chinese propaganda machine. But we have to read between the lines and figure out what is actually useful information. And we know that China and Donald Trump have had a very turbulent relationship because China has a bunch of cards they can play that can actually hurt the U.S. And the U.S. is overplaying their hand. I think the U.S. could have done a lot better by using a different strategy that is less confrontational. And that is currently what China's doing. So I hope that we can learn from these lessons. Let's talk about what this means for me and you. First, volatility is your friend if you know how to trade it. The Trump pattern creates predictable market swings. There's the initial threat, which equals sell-offs. Then there's the reverse moment, which equals recovery rally. We just saw Bitcoin gain 2,000 in 48 hours following this exact same pattern. The second thing is diversification into commodities and alternative assets become more important when currency wars heat up. Traditional stocks become more correlated. Having exposure to gold, Bitcoin, and commodity producers can provide protection. Third, pay attention to supply chain vulnerabilities because the rare earth situation exposes how dependent we are on China for critical minerals. Companies that can reduce this dependency or provide alternatives will be the winners. And don't underestimate the government shutdown impact. We're now in week 2 with over 1,000 CDC employees initially laid off before the administration reversed course due to quote-unquote coding errors. Political chaos creates market uncertainty, but it also creates opportunities for those who stay calm. Tariff impacts typically take 90 to 100 days to show up in the economy. With all the pauses and reversals, we might not see the real effects until 2026. That gives smart investors time to position for whatever comes next. Now, looking ahead, watch the APEC summit in South Korea at the end of this month. Whether Trump actually meets with the Chinese president could determine if de-escalation holds or if we're back to trade war headlines. And don't forget, watch the previous video because everything could be coming to a screeching halt and a downward trajectory regardless of what happens here. These are accelerants. The underlying problem exists whether we like it or not. But these moves that we're seeing in the headlines will accelerate what is already true. Be careful with your portfolio from now until the crash happens. If this analysis helped you understand the market moves we just witnessed, smash the like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more breaking news coverage like this. Make sure you're subscribed with the notification turns on because these political market moves happen fast and you need to stay informed. I'll be monitoring the situation as always and will update the channel immediately if anything changes. Drop a comment below and let me know, do you think Trump will actually follow through with the tariffs this time, or is this just another negotiating tactic? And what's your Bitcoin price target for the rest of October? As always, this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my analysis of current market events. Do your own research before making any investment decisions. The markets are volatile right now, so manage your risk accordingly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.